Hello, and thanks for joining us for Sustaining Us here on KLCS PBS. I'm David Nazar. Green space, it's vital to our physical and mental well-being, no matter what age we are. Green space or open space like hiking and biking trails and parkland like wildlife parks or playgrounds offer opportunities for exercise and social activities while improving our health. According to various school district studies throughout the U.S., school students who could simply even spend part of their day outdoors in a park setting or a green space setting got higher scores on cognitive tests. Unfortunately, our urban landscapes can often tell a tale of inequality where parklands are concerned. For example, in dense urban areas throughout the U.S., especially places like Los Angeles, publicly funded laws to create more parkland have left disadvantaged LA communities in jeopardy. Could there be a fair solution that is affordable and sustainable? Well, we begin our broadcast with the story of an El Monte man and his personal crusade to effect green space change. El Monte, California, population 115,000. This city in the San Gabriel Valley east of Los Angeles is a majority Hispanic community. Many of the residents are struggling, working-class families. Over the years, El Monte, once abundant in farmland and ranch-style homes, became cluttered with car dealerships, retail and convenience stores, gas stations, and traffic from the overcrowded 10 freeway. And when many of the stores and car dealerships left town in the last decade, El Monte became an abandoned city of neglect. In recent years, there have not been many real estate developers or business interests making substantial investments here. These days, when people leave El Monte, they usually never return. David Diaz is an exception. David was born in Mexico, and when he was very young, his parents decided to make El Monte their home. David went to school here and spent many of his days at the neighborhood park playing football, baseball, and soccer. Back then, El Monte was not a concrete jungle. There were some parks in the area for kids to spend their afternoons. Today, it's just the opposite. El Monte has fewer parks and less green space per capita than any city in the U.S. This lack of open space leaves kids and adults vulnerable to things like obesity, inactivity, health problems, loneliness, and isolation. After David graduated from college, he chose to return to El Monte and try and effect change. He was a community organizer and eventually ran for school board member of the El Monte Union High School District. He won and is still on the board. Currently, David Diaz is the executive director of Active San Gabriel Valley. Active San Gabriel Valley is an environmental justice public health nonprofit creating a more sustainable, equitable, and livable San Gabriel Valley. Active SGV, located in El Monte, deals with programs like active transportation, green space development, and making communities more resilient with things like energy efficiency and cleaner air quality. This effort involves lots of community engagement and advocacy work. We met David out here at the Jeff Seymour Family Center. This unique campus, part of Active San Gabriel Valley, is the formerly decommissioned Mulhall Elementary School that is now their nonprofit family village. Here they help families get everything from legal help and health care to education and social services. And Active San Gabriel Valley is working to create recreational green space and open space, something that has been absent here this past decade.
And so recognizing that here in the city of El Monte, we're classified by the state as a top 5 disadvantaged community due to burdens of pollution, it's really important that we introduce park space and more vegetation here so that we can have opportunities to recreate, but also so that there will be more green space available to communities.
These opportunities to walk, hike, or bike in outdoor green space surroundings are found in much more affluent communities of Southern California. Say, for example, places like Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, or Malibu, where there are thousands of acres of parks and open space. David explains what he believes is the reason why the city of El Monte has decompensated over the years and why, until recently, there hasn't been much effort to bring green space to this disadvantaged community.
So when we talk about inequities with respect to park space, it's really a larger conversation around land use. We know that through systemic racism, there have been these occurrences of redlining, so meaning, people of color, Black people weren't able to purchase homes in certain areas. We have what some folks may call frontline communities. We like to refer to them as sacrificial communities, because essentially what's happened, a lot of land use planning has come at the expense of people that live in communities like the city of El Monte. We're a top 5 disadvantaged community, and that not only includes burdens of pollution, but also low educational attainment, high unemployment rates, lack of open space. There's this myriad of issues that we're dealing with, and they're not done unintentionally, they're intentionally. You can think about freeways and displacement, freeways, development, and who they have displaced and who they haven't. It's not by coincidence. The system is working the way that it's intended to. It's been intentional on purpose. And so when we talk about system inequities and racism, you see that play out here. And so when we talk about land use planning, it's really important that we're taking this equitable approach to investing and developing more parks and open space in communities like El Monte. For us to really change the dynamics, one, it's going to require a change in the way that we have our funding guidelines, our principles, right? How are lawmakers or how is legislation dedicating funds to make sure that communities like El Monte have access to these funds, right? 2, doing the capacity building on the ground, right? Community already has a lot of expertise. If you ask anybody here, they don't need a PhD. They already have the PhD in their lived experience, right? So doing the capacity building and working alongside community to develop community-driven projects will be the second piece. And then 3, long-term commitment to funding, to these funding investments. Because it's not enough to do a 1 or 2 year project. It needs to be a decades-long commitment to making sure that we're having regenerative funding to the people who have been most harmed, which are my neighbors.
Active San Gabriel Valley is currently working with various foundations and nonprofits to bring green space back to El Monte. Their plan is to rebuild this 30,000 square foot vacant lot into a new mixed-use open space development for El Monte residents within the next 2 years. Active SGV is encouraging everyone from city and county leaders to real estate builders and developers to try and identify potential places that could be reconstructed into green space areas. For example, vacant lots, empty commercial lots, industrial areas, or even a decommissioned school like this one.
And so as a nonprofit, we have this tremendous opportunity to work alongside these different agencies. And so for this process, right, we're in the phase where we've identified this vacant land. We submitted a funding proposal. It's been tentatively approved for design and engineering. The next phase of that is construction. But all along the way, we're going to be working alongside our community members to make sure that the outcome is driven by them. So design features, components, characteristics, what we're actually doing there, applying for complementary funding.
David said he is working towards the day disadvantaged El Monte returns to the place he once knew as a kid, a city of physical activity, good health, and good education.
Over 50% of this community doesn't have a park within a quarter mile of them, right? And we know that's not the reality in other more affluent neighborhoods. And so we like to work alongside these agencies, community members, to realize community-driven projects. We're literally in a freeway trap, surrounded by the 10 freeway, 605 freeway, and the 60 freeway in the city of El Monte. And so it's really a bad trap of air quality that we're surrounded by. For us, sustainability looks like a bunch of different things, but it focuses on active transportation, open space, water, energy, all these different things that go under the sustainability umbrella.
Joining me now to discuss this further is Danielle Zamora with Active San Gabriel Valley. Danielle is a program specialist for the nonprofit. She works with active transportation projects like the SGB Regional Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan, as well as open streets. Thanks so much for being here, Danielle.
Thank you.
Your colleague David Diaz talked about Active San Gabriel Valley, not much though in the field report, because we really wanted to focus on green space and what's going on in the El Monte region over there. Could you talk more exactly about what Active SGV does?
So at Active SGV, our mission is to create a more sustainable, equitable, and livable San Gabriel Valley. The organization started about 10 years ago as a group of community members who are really concerned about active transportation and mobility issues in the SGV. But as time went on, our mission really expanded. We also work on things like clean energy, air quality, water, building greenways and park space. And I'll also share that I think one of our greatest strengths is our community outreach approach. We really strive to be a resource for the community members who live here. I think that's one of our greatest qualities, is the community-based approach that we take in our work.
And we're going to get to that. I saw on your website you've got some unique programs. Talk to viewers about this Bike and Pedestrian and the Open Streets project you and the folks at Active San Gabriel Valley are working on.
Sure. So the Pedestrian and Bike Master Plan is a regional plan to make improvements to our city streets, to make them more pedestrian, bike, person-friendly, and make them more accessible for public transportation as well. That could be improving sidewalks, building more bike lanes, improving lighting, improving shade on the streets to make it more comfortable for folks, whether that be for exercise or for getting from point A to point B. And then our Open Streets program, which we call 626 Golden Streets, is a single-day event where we open up long stretches of roadway for folks to walk, bike, roll, and play on city streets, on car-free streets. It's a day they connect with community members. They can go out and have lunch at their favorite local business, get some fresh air, and also just see what it's like to have more people-friendly streets.
Why are programs like these so vital, especially in these disadvantaged communities where around Southern California, let's face it, it's really the haves versus the have-nots. It's often a tale of two worlds, really. I mean, there's a glaring difference with cities like Beverly Hills and Boyle Heights or the South Bay area or South LA. Do you agree?
Yeah, so in LA County, there are hundreds of car crashes per year, and I say crash, not accident, where that results in countless deaths and injuries of people who walk and bike in our cities. And if you look at who's a road traffic victim, it can be the person who's just walking to take the bus, or the child who's walking to school, the working class adult who relies on a bike as their primary mode of transportation. These improvements are necessary to increase visibility and protection for our most vulnerable roadway users. And then we also need more of these off-street protected greenways, which essentially are like long parks that function as a way to transport yourself, but also just get outside in a safe place. You can transform an old storm wash into a beautiful greenway that beautifies the neighborhood and serves as like a park for the people who live there. But, you know, in these communities, we have a lot of traffic congestion, we have crashes, and all of these incidences, which is why we need more of these programs to benefit the people living in these communities.
Yeah, and Danielle, you're talking basically about the vulnerability, as you said, of these communities. Sort of give me an overview of the types of families you work with and the many challenges they're dealing with in these poor, sadly, and often neglected neighborhoods. Say, for example, El Monte, because obviously San Gabriel Valley, diverse population, huge region. I'm sure there are still challenges even as you work with more affluent families. So sort of give me a compare and contrast between more disadvantaged families and more affluent families in your area and what you guys are dealing with.
In communities like El Monte, we have a lot of working class families. Some are immigrant families. For them, English isn't always their first language. We have a lot of renters. We have multiple families living in a single household. There's also a lot of liquor stores and very few health food stores. Communities like El Monte, South El Monte, and Baldwin Park have some of the highest obesity rates. We have park-poor neighborhoods, meaning there's a severe lack of open space and designated space for folks to exercise and get some of those mental health benefits that nature provides. Meanwhile, in the more affluent communities, maybe they don't have all of those struggles, but there's still the issue of the incredible number of pedestrian and bicycle fatalities, and congestion and poor air quality that the disadvantaged communities are also dealing with.
So with that, in addition to the projects, and I'm sure there are other projects, but what are some of the other ways you're working on trying to combat all of this?
So one of our more recent projects that we are working on is the Healthy Home Study. And this is something that we're doing in collaboration with the Energy Coalition and UCLA. And what we're looking at is exposure to natural gas inside the home and the effect on air quality. And what we see is that indoor air quality is often much worse than outdoor air quality, which is already a great concern in SGV communities. But in the communities that we studied, particularly for the Healthy Home Study, which were El Monte, Bassett, and Avocado Heights, we see that these households have a lot of older gas appliances, like a gas stove or a gas water heater, that emit a lot of pollutants when they're in use. But these families don't always have the means to switch out their gas appliances for more energy efficient electric appliances, which would be better for their health. At the same time, a lot of them are also renters, so some of this is out of their control. So as California moves to more clean energy and being more energy conscious, how do we make sure that these families and these communities aren't being left behind? We know there are co-benefits to swapping out gas for electric appliances. We know it's better for our health. It saves energy, which can save money. It's more sustainable. But how do we make sure that it's all accessible and these communities aren't left behind?
Danielle, final question. In the field report that began our broadcast, I had asked David Diaz why he believes all this is happening, and he was talking about systemic racism. Why do you believe more isn't being done to try and find solutions to help the cause, as it were? Could city, could county leaders, or even community leaders be doing more to find ways to help these disadvantaged communities? What is your belief?
I really feel that they should be doing more to prioritize the disadvantaged communities when it comes to funding and policy changes. For example, we need more park space. We need more sustainable, affordable housing built next to transit centers. We need better landscaping, more trees on the street to keep it cool during those hot summer months, more landscaping that can capture stormwater so that we don't have flooding in our streets in the rainier months. There's so much that needs to be done, and it's very frustrating that it can take years for these projects to be implemented. But once it's all said and done, it's very rewarding, even though it takes so much time, to see these projects come to fruition and to see the rewards that the community benefits from. But at the same time, this all needs to be done quicker. We need our local electeds and our state electeds to do more now. And if they're not willing to do it, then they should step aside and allow someone else the chance. There's a lot of young progressive leaders who are now running for local and state elections. And I really feel that this is an opportunity and we need to finally give them a shot.
Well, I can safely say you at Active San Gabriel Valley and your team, you folks are definitely affecting change. Thanks, Danielle Zamora, so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, lack of green space and parklands throughout the nation is just part of the problem for disadvantaged communities, especially for kids. There are also environmental and health costs at schools, in this case with regards to portable classrooms. So just exactly what is a portable classroom and why can they be so problematic for youngsters? Public media partner EarthFix traveled to Washington State and has our story.
When you think of a school, you might imagine something that looks like this. But many students actually spend a lot of time in buildings that look like this, and this.
Portables are definitely a problem. I've been in portables for around 7 years.
Portable classrooms have become a common fixture in schools across the country.
Bring water, bring a jacket, be prepared for loud noises. Basically, be prepared to be distracted a lot.
These prefab structures are the go-to quick fix when school populations surpass a school's capacity. But there are hidden costs. Critics say they're bad for the environment, they're a burden for school budgets, and they can be harmful for student health. More than a few children we found are sick of studying in portables.
It feels like you've got your priorities out of order, and I feel a little bit ignored.
The idea behind portable classrooms is that they're supposed to be temporary, something to help schools deal with overcrowding. Try telling that to Billy Lane.
How do you figure out what factors you use to make that happen?
She's been teaching in this portable at Callis Junior High in Puyallup, Washington for 16 years, and it wasn't new when she got it.
I've taken good care of this one, but I think I got lucky with this one too. I can't stress that enough. I think I got lucky.
Since Lane inherited this classroom, she's tried to look on the bright side and make the most of her space.
The one advantage of a portable is the walls are it's like one big bulletin board. You can put it up anywhere and leave it, so the kids have left their mark. It will probably take
Her students call it Lane's World.
This one's going on the wall.
They say a dynamic teacher helps make up for the shortcomings of portable life. But Lane admits, not all portable classrooms are as cozy as hers.
In some of the other portables that I've been in, smell has been an issue. You walk in and they have a real bad odor in them. The lighting is really bad, it's dark, it's dank. When it's that kind of an atmosphere, it sets a tone.
Dave Blake is an indoor air quality specialist for the Northwest Clean Air Agency. He's tested air quality in more than 3,000 classrooms in Washington state.
We have a lot of fancy equipment, but you don't really necessarily need it. You can walk into a classroom and right away, if you can smell the humanity and taste the humidity, you know you've got a ventilation issue.
Blake measures carbon dioxide levels first.
So that's about it, about 1,400 coming in. Fresh outside air is about 400 parts per million now worldwide. We like to keep classrooms below about 800 or 1,000 parts per million. So if it's above that, we want to know why.
High CO2 indicates that students are breathing too much of their own exhaust, taking in germs from coughs and sneezes that hang in the air.
0.3 to 10 microns.
Other airborne particles are likely building up as well. Things like dust and allergens, or volatile organic compounds like formaldehyde. The Tacoma-Pierce County Health Department, one of the only Washington state agencies with consistent CO2 data for schools, found that portable classrooms, on average, did not meet the standard for acceptable CO2 levels.
Already CO2 is dropping in here with the kids gone.
Other studies show that as CO2 levels rise, student performance falls.
As CO2 goes up, so does absenteeism. And it's notable that it's a little worse in portables, but we don't know why.
Blake also looks for signs of moisture by using infrared cameras and moisture meters.
8%. It's essentially bone dry.
When a building takes on water, there's likely to be mold, a common trigger for asthma. Problems get worse as portables remain in use for years or even decades beyond their intended lifespan. Yet it's common practice throughout the Northwest to continue to use portables beyond their life expectancy. It's easy to want to blame school officials, but often they recognize the problems and would like nothing more than to get rid of their old portables. The challenge is convincing taxpayers in their districts to pay for something better. Rudy Files is the Chief Operations Officer for the Puyallup School District. 20% of their classrooms are portable. That's 4 times the national average, and about half are more than 20 years old.
The biggest problem that really all school districts have with portable classrooms is they're really not adequate educational space.
In the last 2 decades, enrollment has more than doubled. For 10 years, the district has tried to pass bonds to pay for new permanent buildings, but again and again, voters have said no. People like Files have no choice but to continue to use old portables and bring in new ones.
Portables are considerably less expensive than permanent space. They're about 1/3 of the cost.
But those savings are only short-term. Studies show that over the course of their lifetimes, portables actually cost twice as much as typical permanent classrooms. In addition to higher maintenance costs, portables are also highly inefficient and take more energy to heat and cool. And because portables are independent structures, they're often charged residential electricity rates.
It's kind of a double whammy. Not only do you use more power, but you pay a higher rate for the power you're using.
Portable classrooms aren't going away anytime soon. But could they be reinvented? Could the next generation of portables be made from formaldehyde-free, non-toxic materials? Could they have open ceilings, larger windows, skylights, and solar panels so the building can generate its own energy? How about trading the conventional, noisy HVAC units for a natural ventilation system that exchanges 3 times as much fresh air? The answer to all these questions is yes. Green portables are actually already being developed around the country. One of the first is being installed in an elementary school in Seattle. This structure is the first portable classroom built to meet the Living Building Standards, the world's strictest rules in sustainable building.
What we're trying to do is take something that was previously the weakest aspect of the school and turn it into a true asset.
This classroom is designed to generate its own energy and harvest its own water. Inside, the classroom looks fundamentally different from a typical classroom.
Wow, this is like the awesomest thing I've ever seen. Whoa, I can't believe this is our classroom. This is going to be our new classroom. I really like the swing. It's fun.
This is how the wall's made. Do you guys want to start with a little bit of show and tell?
Sure.
You will see that all of this is exposed, and we do that because we want to show how the structure is made, but also there's a question about where the wood comes from.
And what's that white thing up there?
That white thing is a carbon dioxide monitor, so we make sure that the air quality is good.
And it has little gauges, knobs, and tubes everywhere that they're just really cool to look at. You'd never find a building that had that all covered up because it looks ugly.
We wanted to play with the center beam, which is structural here, and again, that's also sustainably harvested wood.
When they see systems like are in this building, that'll encourage them to ask questions, and for many students, that'll encourage them to just poke around.
We're trying to expose things to make every single part of the building a learning opportunity.
The most important skill our students can leave our school with is that real-life critical thinking and problem solving, and this building is going to inspire it every day.
Right now, the price tag is about $200,000. That's about twice the cost of a conventional portable. Over time, they say lower operations and maintenance costs will more than make up the difference. For the kids who will get to use this space, the difference is priceless.
Thanks, public media partner EarthFix, for that report. For more information about our program, just click on klcs.org and then click Contact Us to send us your questions and comments or story ideas so we can hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of Sustaining Us here on KLCS PBS. I'm David Nazar.